G10 and FRN. G10 is usually known by its one single name, G10. FRN has a whole lot of different names. Zytel, Zyx, GRN, GFN. There's a whole plethora of names out there for the material, but it's fiberglass reinforced nylon. Glass and plastic melted together is pretty much the shortest, most simple, dumbest way I can explain what that material is. G10 essentially is FRN, the same material, but it is layered up and infused with an epoxy and heated up and cured. So it starts out as almost the same thing as that material, but there's an additional step added to it. These are extremely common materials in the knife world, or at least higher quality knives that won't fall apart on you immediately. So we know what the difference is in the two, but performance-wise, what is the difference? Which one's better? It's pretty minute. They both work fine. I don't have issues with either one, so to speak, but there are some mild pros and cons. For one thing, FRN is cheaper and it is lighter. However, G10, when you have the thickness of it the same as an FRN material you are comparing it to, G10 is a little bit stronger, technically. But as I said, it is a little bit heavier, and generally speaking, it's a little bit more expensive too. Another thing about FRN is that it's much easier to work with. It's very easy to make very wild, crazy, bizarre kind of designs, almost like you're seeing on this knife right here. It's very easy to just shape the frames or the injection mold, whatever kind of process you as the knife manufacturer are doing, and just fill the material in there with whatever patterns or textures you want. As you can see on here, this one's got pretty dynamic texturing on it and spine right there. You can go pretty much nuts. You can do whatever you want almost with FRN. It's very easy to change the shape of it and mold a handle out of it. G10, on the other hand, because it has to be layered up, you're a little bit more limited to what you can do with it. If you look closely along the spine of the material, you can see the layers right there. It almost has a reflective look to it. Really cool. G10's a little bit harder to change the shape of or do wild, crazy things. You're kind of limited to just layering it up and cutting it and shaving it a certain way. G10, however, often has its telltale texture. It almost has a sandpaper-like texture to it. You can make it more aggressive, you can make it a little bit softer, you can change the grit of it, so to speak, pretty easily. And I like that. G10's very grippy, it's very warm to the touch, it's temperature resistant. With FRN, it's harder to get this kind of sandpapery grip. You can do it. I mean, here's an example of an FRN and G10 handled comparison. The one on the right, the OD1 by Kershaw, this is G10, and then on the left, the little brother to it, the OD2, this is an FRN handle scale. They look pretty similar from far away, but when you get closer, you'll notice some mild differences in the texturing. This is an FRN designed to mimic a G10 grip, and then right here is an actual G10 grip. A little bit softer than the Cold Steel Recon 1 right here. With the G10 on the right, you can see my thumb moving a little bit more on the left. I'm trying to apply the same amount of pressure, but it's moving slightly more because it's slightly less grippy. So yeah, G10 does have that telltale sandpaper-like grip to it. FRN, you can get pretty close, try to mimic that, but it won't quite be the same. That being said, the G10 grip doesn't tend to last forever. Technically speaking, whenever you do this with a knife, whenever you move your thumb around it, whenever you rub against it, technically speaking, you are shaving off material at a very, very microscopic level, probably. But on the G10, it happens a little bit more readily. Once you do this to a brand new G10 knife, that fresh G10 you get out of the box, man, it's grippy. It's a really, really nice feel. But as you start using it, as you start holding the knife, even normally, over time you start softening the material. You start softening the texturing on there. So let's recap real quick. G10, a little bit stronger, a little bit heavier, a little bit more expensive. The grip on it is really nice. If you like that sandpaper-like grip, it's fantastic, but it does not last as long as the FRN. FRN, cheaper, easier to make wild, wacky shapes with it, easier to work with, a little bit cheaper, a little bit lighter weight. Not quite as dense, though. Again, even if you have the same thickness of the material, comparing FRN to G10, the G10 is going to be a little bit stronger. This Cold Steel Recon 1 has no steel liners in it of any kind. It's pure G10, and man, it doesn't give almost at all. It feels rock solid. Granted, it's probably possibly part of this backspacer they put here in the lock bar, but even then, it's really, really dense. It's a very, very solid handle, despite being pure, slim G10 slabs like this. When you take an FRN knife, usually, like this one, has some flush-mounted stainless steel liners in there to help It feels about as dense, but we have steel liners in there. Here's another FRN knife, Honey Badger. This one you can visibly see it giving a little bit more when I try to bend it. Even with some skeletonized flush-mounted stainless steel liners in there, it still gives a little bit because the FRN is just not quite as dense as G10. Even with those steel liners, you need to support it. If you got rid of those steel liners, forget it. This would be flexing a lot more. Does that matter that much? Not really, but if you want a solid knife, yes. You don't want it to be giving too much, do you? So that is another disadvantage to the FRN, technically speaking. But going back to its advantages, look at this pattern right here. Interesting little honeycomb pattern. Is it as grippy as the G10? Not really. But it will last forever. The G10 eventually will not. And just to show you the weight difference, here's a Spyderco Resilience Lightweight, which is with an FRN handle scale. And then this guy is a Spyderco Manix G10 with a G10 handle scale. So despite the resilience, the guy on the top being with an FRN handle scale, being considerably longer than the Manix. I mean, even look at the blade difference there. Blade on the resilience is, it's got a longer blade. About the same thickness, more or less, but the handle scale materials, FRN on the left, G10 on the right, are about the same thickness. They both have steel liners. The lightweight one has them skeletonized very aggressively in there. The Manix does not have them skeletonized. However, if we were to look at the weight difference, the Manix clocks in at 4.47 ounces, and this Resilience, which is significantly longer and about the same thickness, 4.01. And granted, again, not skeletonized liners in here, and these ones are skeletonized, but that only saves you maybe like 0.15 ounces or so. My point is, G10's heavier than FRN. And again, with the FRN, you can do some wacky designs, some cool stuff like this volcano grip. G10, you're a little bit more limited. Actually, a lot more limited on what kind of textures you can use. This is another little discussion video. What do you think? Do you like G10? Do you like FRN? I like them both. I love G10. I love FRN for the reasons I have explained in this video. Metal handles? They're stronger than both of these put together, but they are heavier. They're slippery. They're not temperature resistant. In fact, they conduct temperature. They also scratch very easily. They wear a lot easier, at least aesthetically. Functionally, they'll be a lot stronger than the other two materials, but they won't appear to be because they just wear so damn easily. And they're not necessarily cheaper. Don't get me wrong, I like metal handles on certain knives like this Cryo right here. I think it's cool, but functionally speaking, we're kind of past metal these days. We have better, more efficient materials we can use, such as G10 and FRN. These two guys have pretty much stepped up to the top of the game when it comes to knife handle materials, as far as function goes anyway. What do you think? FRN, G10? Are there any advantages and disadvantages I missed? Let me know. Thanks for watching.